So some of you may have seen this in the background of some videos, or if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen it a lot there. But this is 66 Pontiac Bonneville, all original, with only 55,000 miles on it. Now, it's actually pretty cool the way it is, total grandpa fresh car, and it is almost the ultimate cruiser. Just needs an LS, bags, some big steelies, and it would be perfect. But it's pretty cool the way it is, all original, like I said. This was my daily over the winter while we were doing everything to that thing. And there's really no issues I ever had with it. The only things we did to it were, replaced fuel filter because it was clogged, did new intake manifold gasket because that was leaking. And then on my way to school one morning, I go downhill and the brakes went out because the master, just a nice little single pop, a little bit sketchy, was pretty rusted. So the rest of the day I had to use the e-brake driving around. That was a fun experience. But other than that, this thing is absolutely mint. The paint, it's a little bit faded in spots, but I mean, it's original paint. We got a little bit of rust spots and whatnot. The vinyl top is immaculate, and the biggest rust spot on the entire car is that right there. Needs a new package tray because the defroster in the back here, all the water would drip on it. So still got to get one of those, but that's really the only thing that like looks kind of beat up. I mean, the interior on this thing is, oh my God, driving this thing is just one of the coolest things. It's got like this see-through like crystal like looking steering wheel. I don't know, I dig it. The dashboard is awesome too, and everything is turquoise on turquoise. So believe it or not, these are still the I'm gonna say not the original, but at least 40-year-old bias ply tires, and they are pretty dry rotted, but somehow they lasted through the winter. Under the hood, it's just a 389 with a 2-barrel, nothing too crazy. Got a 400 trans. So all we're gonna be doing here is basically, I think, regasketing the whole engine, repainting it. I want to convince my dad to paint the engine bay because I think it would look a lot better. But the cool thing is the inner fender wells are actually really nice. So I don't really know if we want to paint those or what we're gonna do, but I think the firewall needs to at least get painted. These pieces up here, fan shroud, core support and whatnot, I think that would make this thing really pop. Do some nice Pontiac blue, whatever blue that is. Honestly, looks a little bit darker than Pontiac blue, so I'm not totally too sure what it is. But the main reason we're doing this is because it leaks oil. Not sure where. Think it might be the front cover gasket or the rear main, or both, in all honesty. Obviously, those are two totally different spots, so it very well could be both. And then under here, the back gasket behind the water pump leaks quite a bit. So once you actually put some pressure to it and this thing starts up, you get a nice little pool of coolant right here. So those are a few things we're gonna go ahead and fix, and while we're at it, might as well, clean it up. I'm not sure if we're doing head gaskets or gonna pull the heads off. We were talking about, I think we are, just because why not? But yeah, if I can ask my dad where he put them. This thing came with all the gas receipts from like the last 20 years. The previous owner like kept track of like the mileage and everything. And in the past, in the past 20 years, I had less than 100 miles put on it. And in the past like 4 or 5 months of me driving it, I put over 3,000. So pretty crazy. This thing just sat in a garage basically. Here you can still see some of the old Chicago parking stickers, which is pretty neat. So like I said, it's a cool little car, nothing crazy. Would be really sick with a single turbo 6.0, but I don't know. I think we'll just clean it up, make it more reliable than it already is, if that's even a thing. And might as well film it, because why not? Last night we got the engine out, got the trans out. Both are pretty greasy and dirty after 60 years of driving almost. And pretty much everything cleared out of the engine bay that I think we're gonna take out. Now, personally, I wanna go through, clean all this up, repaint it, because if we're gonna reseal the engine and make that all nice and new and shiny, I think it'd be nice to do all this here. I don't know. My dad, on the other hand, is kind of so-so. One, because if we just did the engine, we can have it back in there in pretty much like a week. And two, because this is all original and you only want to tamper with so much. I mean, it's a perfectly running, driving car, no issues. So we'll see what we end up deciding doing, but check this out. On the engine bay here, I don't exactly know what this little piece is. I think it's just a little like support panel. Well, look how nice that paint is. It's probably the nicest paint or painted piece on this car. I mean, this paint is pretty nice, but this has got like no scratches, clear coat's not peeling. I mean, no sun fade, so that's kind of neat to see. These inner fender wells are really nice as well. So maybe just, I don't know, clean it up and roll with it. I guess we'll see what we end up deciding. But the goal for today is to go ahead, degrease this thing, get it on the stand, and start tearing it apart. Power washing this thing really cleaned it up. Now you can see there's actually some blue underneath all that gunk and grease. And as for the trans, this thing looks really nice. You didn't even know this thing was aluminum beforehand. Could not see anything. So we might go ahead and paint this. I don't totally know yet. Might just do black just so it doesn't look as dirty. We're talking about like a cast blaster. Maybe just leave it. I'm not totally sure. Pretty neat. Still got the original tag down there, which is cool. That's actually in really nice condition. It's made in the USA right on it there, so I dig it. I've been doing a couple small things to the duster here. While I was doing that, my dad went ahead and did one pass, just wire wheel in the block for now, because I think we're gonna go ahead and blast all the tin work. So the block, it needs a few more passes, but right now that is honestly not too shabby. So I think a couple more passes with the wire wheel, some more cleaning, then we can go ahead and take everything off, clean all the surfaces, and start putting the new gaskets on. I got all the tins, little pulleys, or little brackets and pulleys all blasted, and went ahead and just threw some primer on them really quick so they wouldn't flash rust or anything. But some of the tin stuff turned out pretty nice, honestly. I mean, it's gonna look so good once it's painted Pontiac blue. All this turned out really nice. It's not that it wasn't like really rusty or anything, it just had a bunch of flaky paint. Now the pan, on the other hand, this thing here, I mean, our little blaster, we got like a little handheld thing that hooks up to the compressor with a blasting tank. It can only do so much. This thing is pretty painted, so I'm just gonna go ahead and wire wheel that. I mean, you can see it was only doing so much. It was kind of flaking out on us. This was like one of the last things I did. So I'll just go ahead and wire wheel this as best I can. Probably rust convert it, and then just prime and paint that as well. I mean, I'd like to have it blasted and everything, but it is what it is. Intake, on the other hand, that's gonna be tricky as well. I mean, the blaster is only really doing so much, so that's gonna take some more cleaning and whatnot. And then all this stuff, it's got like a gloss lacquer. Looks pretty cool. I think I'm just gonna go ahead and paint strip that because there's like no scratches or rust or anything. I don't think it needs to be blasted, and doing all this stuff took quite some time. Like I said, our little blaster, so just paint strip that, repaint it, some nice gloss black, and I think that'll look cool. But this has turned into, oh boy, a bigger project than we wanted or expected. But you know, that's how it goes for quite literally everything. Hopefully now we're on the other side, putting things back together. Ended up having to pull the crank just to replace the rear main, because every time I went to pull it out from the side there with pliers or whatnot, it would keep ripping. So that kind of sucked. We got all this mess here, but this at least makes me feel good that we're on hopefully the right track here. Man, if you don't like Pontiac blue, I think something is wrong with you, because that is the most beautiful engine color ever. It's very close to the paint color, but you can see the difference there. This is like a little more blue, a little bit darker. God, I love this engine color. It is so sick, and honestly, it turned out really good, all things considered. I mean, the valve covers look really smooth, not that they're all blasted. Valley pan cover looks good. Pretty happy with the results. The only thing that isn't the greatest is the oil pan. That's because it was so pitted down here, and the only way to really fix that would have been to get a whole new pan, but it works, didn't leak, no holes were through or anything. And you're never really gonna see it, I'll just always know, but not a huge deal. I dig it, but my favorite part out of this whole engine and probably the whole project here is this little sticker right here. It looks so sick. The original one, we were so sad to take it off. Such a cool little thing that is extremely pointless, but hey, it looks neat. So put that back on there. And then for the intake, or not intake, air cleaner here, found another one of these stickers, which I think the original one was silk screened on there. So I cleaned this whole thing up, did a nice coat of gloss, toss this on, and bam. So at this point, you can just call me Mark Warman because that looks freaking factory. So next step here is just to clean up the engine bay a little bit. I don't know how far we're really gonna go. I think it's just gonna be like degrease and kind of polish everything up because we gotta get this and that back in this car and get it back on the road. Last night we got the engine back in, all set in place. This was honestly decently easy to put in just because there's so much space and everything. Looks pretty good. I still want to go ahead and just paint that little spot on the heater box, remember the whole heater box, because that's really the only spot with rust. But yeah, doesn't look too awful. And as we were going to put the trans in, the cross member here, which weighs like 1,000,000 pounds, the end piece just decided to rust off and call it a day. So these little rubber mounts are what goes over the end, and then a a cap would go over this with a hole on each end, and that's how it would bolt down. And as you can see, that does not work, and we pulled this off and it was literally just a pocket of rust. So I'm guessing water just sat in it, and over the years, yeah, it just rusted itself. So my plan here is I'm gonna make a plate, I think on each side here, that'll be the right length, and then thick enough where this can just slide on, and hopefully that'll work. Well, there we have it. Got the extension on the cross member here all wrapped up. I did a 1/8 inch plate on this side, 1/8 inch plate on the back side, and then there was a perfect gap where I could just slide a little plate in there. Weld all the way around. Not the best, not the worst. I mean, this stuff was a pain to weld to. It's like 1/4 inch thick and super pitted after 60 years, but hey, may do. I dig it. I mean, it'll work, does the job. So this cap here, this rubber boot, will kind of just slide over like so, and then the clamp will go over the top like that. So now that this here is done, the next step is to prime and paint it, and then we go ahead and toss this whole cross member back in the car, hopefully. So after I got this tab welded on last night, I was going to move this thing to go outside and paint it, and I dropped it, and the little rusted tab on this side cracked off. So went ahead, did the same thing as I did to that side, just sandwiched 1/8 inch plate on both sides. Boom, that'll work. It turned out better than the first side, so I'm happy with it. But yeah, now we will know that this will not crack in the car, hopefully. And while I've been doing that, my dad pretty much got the engine all back together in here. I mean, he put the intake on, hooked up the carb, alternator, power steering pump, front accessories, trans lines, exhaust. I mean, everything is pretty much back together. The wiring, I just went ahead, kind of cleaned the entire engine bay, really simple. I went ahead and just kind of organized this loom here and kind of tucked that up nicely. So, I mean, nothing too crazy. But yeah, the next step here is to flush out the radiator, make sure there's no gunk in there. And then we just got a last few little things in the trunk here to toss back on, and this thing should be running again. So this video should be over by now, and this engine should be in there, but instead it is back out on the stand. This is not how we needed or wanted things to go, but it's the way it went. Thankfully, it's just a simple-ish issue. It just required us taking the whole engine out, but is what it is, I guess, at this point. So had everything situated, everything wired up, plumbed up, like everything was set. Went to go drop the distributor. set top dead center, and then we're gonna take it for a test drive. Well, distributor wasn't going in easily, and that would be because this rod right here, the oil pump drive rod, was all chewed up. It doesn't look bent, but as you can see, this tab here is bent. So the distributor wasn't dropping down easily. So we decided to bump the engine over. Maybe like the tooth on the gear wasn't lining up with the cam. Hopefully it would drop it in. That ended up resulting in this dropping down, getting wedged in the oil pump, but instead of going like on the little rod on the oil pump to push it up and down, it slipped off and went down and just hit the windage tray. So luckily it didn't crack the block or anything. This is only a $10, $15 part, whatever it is. This rod's obviously pretty destroyed. It's sweet that it won't focus right now, but there you go. You can see it's pretty beat up. So it sucks because the only way to drop the oil pump on this is to pull the pan, and you can't do that in the car. But we don't totally know what the issue is. It's like the hole down in here where the distributor gear goes in. It's like, maybe it's a little oblong, but it looks like, I don't know, based off looking up stuff offline, like everything else is like that too. It's just a common issue, I guess. I don't totally know. It sucks. So got a new one of those coming. Toss that back in, toss the oil pump back on. We will be dropping the distributor before it is set in the car this time, I think, just to make sure it actually all works. And then hopefully later tonight we can toss this whole thing back in, because at this point we've gotten pretty good at putting this engine in this car, and it shouldn't take us much longer. That's if nothing else goes wrong. Well, we got the engine back in after a little issue, and as you can see, it is out here in the driveway. So moved under its own power. Took it for a test drive, no issues whatsoever. Can't really say I'm surprised because this thing is pretty much a champ. I had a little exhaust leak, but basically the flange bolts, we put new ones in there, too long, so just put shorter ones in there. Solved that. That was really the only issue we had, and as you can see under here, there is no leaks on the driveway, which was the whole point of doing all this. So if I can pop the hood one-handed here, because this hood weighs 500,000 pounds. There we go. Show you what it looks like. So pretty simple, nothing too crazy, but there we go. That's the final product. I know, absolutely incredible. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, everything's buttoned up. Engine looks good. I still love that sticker. Looks all nice. Looks honestly pretty original. So I say give it a few months. Maybe the engine will get a little dirty and whatnot, and it'll kind of blend in with the rest. But overall, not too bad. I was gonna say it was a pretty quick and easy process, but yeah, nothing's ever quick or easy here, I swear. So now that that is done, we got a decent list to do to this, which is over there, in order to get ready for Power Tour in 2 weeks. Have a couple things gonna do to my dad's car. I think just some small stuff before we go drive 2,500 miles with these things, so that's exciting. Next video will probably be, actually, I think this week I'm gonna go ahead. I got a new cowl piece, gonna replace this because that's ugly. So that'll probably be the next video. Video after that will probably be prepping these things for Power Tour, and then after that, my goal is to do daily videos for, I don't know, 6 to 7 days in a row on Power Tour. So lots to do before then, lots to look forward to, and only about a week and a half to get it all done. So at least that thing's done. That thing is done. Now we can go ahead and focus on these two.